The year is 1453. The ground shakes. Massive stone blocks, some weighing tons, crash down from walls that have stood for over 1,000 years. Through the smoke and dust, Ottoman soldiers surge forward, their war cries echoing across the Bosphorus. It's dawn on May 29th, and Constantinople, the last bastion of the Roman Empire, is about to fall forever. Today we're diving into the conquest that changed the world, exploring a revolutionary invention that transformed warfare, witnessing the end of a 100-year conflict, and uncovering how one pope's call sparked a European crusade. Picture the world in 1453. The Ottomans control vast swathes of southeastern Europe and Anatolia. France and England are finally ending their century-long struggle. The Italian Renaissance is in full swing. And in the German states, a goldsmith named Gutenberg has just perfected something that will change everything. But first, let's witness the end of an empire. Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos stands on the walls of his capital, looking out at an impossible sight. Mehmed II, just 21 years old but already called the Conqueror, has assembled the largest army the world has ever seen. We're talking about 80,000 to 100,000 men surrounding a city defended by fewer than 7,000. But here's what makes this siege extraordinary: Mehmed has brought cannons. Not just any cannons, monsters designed by a Hungarian engineer named Orban. The largest, nicknamed Basilica, is 27 feet long and can hurl a 600-pound stone ball over a mile. When it fires, the sound can be heard from 10 miles away. For 53 days, these mechanical beasts pound the Theodosian walls, fortifications that had protected the city since 13 AD. But Constantine and his men aren't giving up without a fight. They've stretched a massive chain across the Golden Horn to prevent Ottoman ships from entering the harbor. Surely that's enough? Think again. On April 22nd, Mehmed does something that defies belief. He orders his entire fleet, over 70 ships, to be dragged overland, around the chain, and launched into the Golden Horn behind the city's defenses. Imagine the Byzantines' shock as they wake to see Ottoman warships floating in what they thought was their safe harbor. The final assault comes at dawn on May 29th. Wave after wave of Ottoman troops crash against the walls. The emperor himself, refusing to flee, strips off his imperial regalia and fights as an ordinary soldier. His body will only be identified later by his purple boots. By midday, it's over. The last Roman emperor is dead. The city that had stood as the eastern bulwark of Christianity for over 11 centuries has fallen. Mehmed II, now truly the conqueror, rides through the streets to the Hagia Sophia, where he orders the great cathedral to be converted into a mosque. But while one empire dies in the east, something revolutionary is happening in a workshop in Mainz. Johannes Gutenberg, a goldsmith turned inventor, is about to change human civilization forever. This year, he completes what we now call the Gutenberg Bible, the first major book printed using movable type in Europe. Now, you might think, printing? How exciting can that be? But consider this: before Gutenberg, copying a single Bible took a scribe about 2 years. With his press, he can produce the same book in weeks. The implications are staggering. Here's the ingenious bit: instead of carving each page by hand like the Chinese had been doing for centuries, Gutenberg creates individual metal letters that can be arranged and rearranged infinitely. Each letter is cast from an alloy of lead, tin, and antimony, the perfect combination for sharp, durable type. The ink he develops from linseed oil and soot creates prints so crisp they rival the finest manuscripts. By the end of this year, Gutenberg has printed about 180 copies of his Bible. Within 50 years, there will be over 9 million printed books in Europe. Knowledge, once the privilege of the wealthy elite, is about to become democratized. The Reformation, the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment, none of it would be possible without what happens in that workshop in Mainz this year. Meanwhile, just months before Constantinople falls, another epoch comes to an end. On July 17th, at the Battle of Castillon in southwestern France, the English suffer a devastating defeat that finally ends the 100 Years' War. The irony is delicious. John Talbot, the legendary Earl of Shrewsbury and the most feared English commander in France, leads a desperate charge against French positions. But this isn't Agincourt. The French, learning from their past disasters, have positioned their army behind earthworks bristling with cannons and culverins. Talbot, now over 60 and still fighting like a man half his age, refuses to wait for his infantry. I have lived through too many battles, he supposedly declares, to start being cautious now. He charges straight into the French guns. Within hours, he's dead, along with his son and 4,000 English soldiers. It's a fitting end to a war that began with English longbows dominating French knights at Crusade and ends with French artillery obliterating English cavalry at Castillon. The age of gunpowder has arrived, and warfare will never be the same. By October, Bordeaux, English for 3 centuries, surrenders to the French. Of all their vast continental empire, the English are left with just Calais. The 100 Years' War is finally over, though interestingly, no treaty is ever signed. Both sides simply stop fighting, exhausted by a conflict that has devastated France and bankrupted England. Back in Rome, Pope Nicholas V receives the devastating news from Constantinople. The great cathedral of Hagia Sophia, for 9 centuries the heart of Eastern Christianity, is now a mosque. The Pope's response is immediate and dramatic. He calls for a new crusade. But this isn't 1095. Europe in 1453 is fractured, war-weary, and increasingly skeptical of papal authority. The French are too busy consolidating their victory over England. The English are licking their wounds. The German princes are more concerned with local politics than distant crusades. Only a few respond to the Pope's call. Most notably, the brilliant military commander John Hunyadi of Hungary, who has already spent decades fighting the Ottomans. But even Hunyadi knows that without massive European support, any crusade is doomed to fail. The Pope's call does achieve one thing, though: it crystallizes European fears about Ottoman expansion. From now on, the Turkish threat will dominate European politics for centuries. Every Habsburg emperor, every Venetian doge, every Polish king will have to factor Ottoman power into their calculations. What makes this particularly fascinating is that Mehmed II isn't finished. He's already planning his next moves: the conquest of Serbia, the invasion of Wallachia, perhaps even a march on Rome itself. Why not? His cannons have just proved that no walls, however ancient or mighty, can stop the Ottoman war machine. And so 1453 becomes one of history's great hinge years. An empire that traced its lineage back to Augustus Caesar breathes its last. An invention that will spread ideas faster than ever before comes to life. A war that shaped 2 nations for centuries finally ends. And a pope's desperate call highlights just how much the world has changed. The medieval world is dying, and something we might recognize as modernity is being born. Next year, we'll see how these seismic shifts continue to reshape Europe, as new powers rise and old certainties crumble. The age of gunpowder, printing, and global exploration has begun, and there's no turning back. And so concludes our journey through 1453. Join us next time as we explore what the year 1454 has in store.